If you want to write your novel but never seem to have enough time, here's the time-saving and science-based tips that worked for me when I wrote my debut novel while working a full-time job. And I'm still using these as I write the second novel in my book deal, so hopefully they'll be helpful to you as well. Firstly, habit stacking. Try habit stacking. Various people, including James Clear in his book Atomic Habits, talks about how to stack habits together to make you more likely to achieve your goals. This one's backed by science too. So the idea is to link one habit with another. So let's say you have something you do every day, like go and sit at the dining table in the morning to drink some coffee. If you know you have some time before work to write, you could try leaving your laptop on the dining table the night before, so that in the morning you start associate going to the table and drinking coffee with writing, and it becomes easier to do over time. Next tip, use Parkinson's law to your advantage. So you're probably wondering, what on earth is Parkinson's law? So it's the idea that your work expands to fill the time that you've allocated for it. And the basic point of it is that if you say, I'm going to take all day to write this scene, it probably will end up taking all day. If you only give yourself an hour, you'll find a way to get the thing done in an hour. So how do you get around that? So one thing that's helped me and my writer friends is writing sprints. So you give yourself a set amount of time and you all write as much as you can in that time. And we use something called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro always makes me think of tomato pasta, which isn't ideal when you're about to start a writing session, but actually it uses a fixed amount of time, so 25 minutes to complete the task. Officially, it's also supposed to include a 5-minute break at the end of that before you start your next 25 minutes. So that's 30-minute chunks that you work in total. And the idea behind it is to give you a specific and focused time to work within. And 25 minutes is a manageable amount of time that doesn't feel overly daunting. Plus, you're incentivizing yourself with that break at the end, the 5-minute break. And in fact, there's science behind that principle. So dopamine is a hormone and neurotransmitter that fires when we do something pleasurable. And we human beings absolutely love dopamine. When you know you've got a break coming, it will fire the dopamine in your brain, and it makes writing that little bit easier. You can also try combining the Pomodoro technique with the next tip I'm going to give you. Non-negotiable timing. So create non-negotiable times for your writing. I know that isn't easy for everyone, but if you can find times that you set aside and that can't be moved for anything else, that will help you with your writing. An accessible way to do this might be what I do. So my writing friends and I set up writing sprints using the Pomodoro technique, where we all get on Zoom together at 7 o'clock and we do our 25-minute writing sprints with cameras and audio off. And then at the end, we could come back on screen and report back to everyone on how we'd done. And this worked for us for a number of reasons. Writing is lonely and sometimes a little boring. We knew we needed to be on the call for a set time, and it made us more likely to stick with it if we'd already said we were joining that day. And also, PS, scheduling it at 7 p.m. was a good time because everyone was getting hungry for dinner. We just wanted to get the writing out of the way so that we could all go and eat, so an extra incentive. And even if you don't necessarily want to write with others, carving out that specific time that you don't move for anything else could be a good way to make that time to write. On to the next tip. So kill procrastination. So one of the toughest things to overcome when we're trying to write our novels quickly is procrastination. And to be honest, I think procrastination is actually hard to avoid entirely. I try to see it as our brain's way of processing the next steps in our writing when we're not quite ready to move on. But if you do want to move faster with your writing, you're going to want to try and kill as much of the procrastination as possible. So the things that work for me include using productivity apps. So when I first started writing my novel, I used something called the Freedom app on my phone, which stops access and notifications to all unnecessary apps on smartphones. Nowadays, both iPhone and Android have these built in. For Apple users, there's something called the app limit feature, and on Android, it's called digital well-being. You can also try just turning off your notifications, or even more drastic, but could work, unplugging the internet entirely whilst you're writing. Some people find it better to go and write in a coffee shop, and that totally depends on my mood. Sometimes I find all the visual and noise stimulation a bit too much, even with my headphones on, but you really just have to write wherever works for you. On to the next tip, time blocking. So time blocking is a really great way to get more organised with your writing time. Time blocking is a great way to get more organised with your time when writing a novel. Science shows that removing anything that requires extra mental energy will make you more productive. If you're spending time every single day just thinking about when you're going to fit writing into your day, that's energy that could actually be used for writing itself. So time blocking is basically just a way of blocking different types of activity into your calendar so that you leave a specific time, day, or both, which you allocate to writing, and you could color code that as well. And if your available time changes every day or week, then time blocking can help you stay organized and on top of when you're going to be writing. And on the flip side, if you have a particular time each day or week that you know you definitely can write, it can become more of a habit that you don't even have to think twice about. And then on to the next tip, remove all hurdles. If you want to focus your time on writing your novel, then removing the hurdles that make it difficult to start is really important. Make everything as easy as possible to get going. So make sure the laptop's charged, make sure the room will be warm or cool enough, or whatever it might be that you need to get started before you actually start. For me, that actually just meant writing straight into my smartphone on the train going into work. I cut the laptop out of the equation entirely on weekdays. So see what might actually work for you. And before we move to the next tip, if you like this video and would like help on writing, publishing and marketing, as well as more details on how I went from total non-writer to 2-book deal, make sure you like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Use tools to your advantage. If you struggle to find time when you can actually be at a screen to write, you could try dictation instead. And there are writers who dictate stories into their phones during car drives or even while doing the dishes. It does take some getting used to, as you can't see what you're writing as you go, but it can actually also be quite freeing because of that. And I could never quite make it work for my own writing because I have a few non-English names and words in my novels which it can't cope with quite as well. But the technology is really good and it's pretty accurate. I used otter.ai, but there are lots of apps that you can try instead. Another tip, 5 minutes of writing is still writing. And it's easy to think that we have to have an hour or more to actually write. But if all you have is 5 or 15 minutes, just see what you can do in that time. And you're obviously not going to be able to write a wholly immersive scene from start to finish, but you could spend that few minutes thinking of an interesting way to describe a character's appearance, for example, and use every spare minute because it really will add up over time. Another thing you can do, use dead time. If you want to spend more time to write your novel, you can try making use of all your dead time. We're all very busy, but if you have a commute into work like I did, you could try using that time to write. And don't feel you need a laptop, especially if you can't even get a seat to stand. Try writing into your phone, which is what I did, or using a notebook if that's better. Or if you're waiting, say, for a tradesperson to arrive or a friend of yours to come to the house, or you're waiting to pick up your kids from school or whatever that might be, try using those few minutes to write. On the flip side, the next tip is take the pressure off. And it's important to remember that writing isn't just what's done at a desk, on a screen or on paper. The time we spend daydreaming in the shower or washing the dishes, thinking about our stories and characters, is also writing time. And that really helped me feel less guilty about the fact that they only had half an hour or less a day to write. Some days we may not feel up to writing, and I think it's better to just give yourself a break if that's the case. And there'll be other days when you can probably make that time up again anyway. So the next tip is to batch tasks. So here's a science-based method for speeding up your writing. And it's hard for some people, but if you're writing a first draft, or what I call a zero draft, which you can learn more about in my other video, then focus on getting the words down and leaving all editing until the next draft you do. Science shows that doing one task at a time is faster, because otherwise your brain is having to switch mode constantly, which slows things down and uses valuable energy. I didn't read any of my first draft back until I'd finished it all, and I knew it helped me write my debut novel faster. Another tip, write when your mind is freshest. Depending on who you are, there will be times when you're most creative and the words come faster. So Toni Morrison always wrote early in the morning before her children got up, and she actually continued to do that even after they'd grown up. For other people, that time might actually be last thing at night or the middle of the night, but try to work with your best energy. And if you like this video, you might like to check out this one on writing whilst you have a day job next. Thanks for watching.